I mean, he technically, well, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he's got other projects.
Yeah.
He's a good actor, but
Yeah, let's move on here. I think we this is one story that you wanted to talk about. This is Byron Allen's lawsuit against Comcast. So I'll let you take that away.
yeah. So Byron Allen, he's best known as like a very successful comedian, but he's also an extremely successful businessman. Not too long ago, I believe this was in like 2007 or so, he acquired several networks, several different syndicated TV shows and networks. He currently owns 43 syndicated television series, 8 cable networks, the Weather Channel, and a movie studio. Right, so he is. I mean, he's up there with when you look at like very successful black. Owners in the film industry, up there with like Bob Johnson and Tyler Perry in terms of owning his own studio, owning several networks, several channels. Again, 43 of these are syndicated television series. But he's been in a battle with Comcast, I believe, or a lawsuit with Comcast. I believe this was filed in like 2015, if not sooner.
Yeah.
Let me get the exact date here. It'll come to me. So anyway, what this battle is about is Byron Allen and his television series and his networks and his film studios. They have contracts and deals in place with several of Marvel's competitors. Verizon, Dish Network, Netflix, and a lot of these other streaming services. However, Comcast refuses to carry any of his 43 syndicated television series, any of the content or movies produced from his studios, or his Weather Channel, right? Mm-hmm. And Mr. Allen believes that it's based on race, right? Because he's like a black owner of a lot of these properties, they're refusing to carry that because in one meeting with a Comcast executive, the executive was quoted as saying, we don't need another Bob Johnson. And again, Bob Johnson, he's the founder of BET, Black Entertainment Television. They're basically saying, oh, we don't need one of them. We've already got one of you. We've got you under Viacom, and we show your BET on our network. So one of you's enough.
It's fucked up,
right?
We show your BET.
So this court has gone through several different circuit courts and appellate courts, and now it is in front of the Supreme Court, who will ultimately make a ruling. And this is a $20 billion lawsuit. So they're ultimately going to make a ruling. It could go either way, right? So the big issue that this raises is I'm sorry, I should have had this up. The Civil Rights Act of, 1866, which basically said that African Americans were going to be granted the right to fair equality in contracts, right? So no business, no organization could treat African Americans fairly or minority groups based off of like race, gender, religion, sexual preference, or orientation, or any of those things, right?
Yeah.
So this is in civil court. This battle is over that thing, right? They denied Mr. Allen the right to have his programs on their network because of his race, for the most part. Now, if this goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court rules in favor of Comcast, that'll ultimately reverse the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which will give Comcast the right to deny Byron Allen the right to air his programs on their network because of race. Now, here's the thing. Here's a caveat to that. Race cannot be the primary factor.
Right.
So again, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of Comcast, they're basically saying you can deny someone a contract or the right to work with in short, you can deny a contract based off of race, right?
Right.
So long as that's not the primary factor.
Right.
That is basically giving a okay or a thumbs up to racial discrimination.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm not going to air your stuff. It's partly because you're black, but we're going to just say that we don't feel that this content brings value or it's going to have a return on investment to our network. That's the first reason. The second reason is because you're black. That's opening the door to racial discrimination in film, TV, and media.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very sort of complicated sort of scenario. On the face of it, yeah, like it's just very plain. Like, yeah, uh, it would appear that you know. Either Comcast is in the wrong, or and I think of recent the Department of Justice has actually
DOJ.
DOJ has gotten
Is
involved,
backing the Comcast.
and very obviously, right, like whenever there's a dispute between an individual and a corporation or conglomerate, this administration's always going to back the corporation or conglomerate, unless it benefits them either personally or otherwise to benefit the individual, right?
And I believe this is at like Trump's direction for the most part. Is that like
I don't know if it's at his specific direction,
because I think he appointed the
he probably,
counsel for the DOJ to work with Comcast in this particular
case.
But
I don't know if the orders came from on high, from Trump directly to
we know this president. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised, but then I'd be curious as to like why he's getting, like why he would directly be involved, and like what would be his, I don't know. Anyways, but
he's involved in a lot of stuff that he has no reason to be in. So
mostly being president of the United States. Yeah,
very successful billionaire suing Comcast over racial discrimination.
Yeah,
I can imagine Trump gets wind of this, sees it on Twitter. He's like, "Yeah, I'm with Comcast."
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that, but also, yeah, I'd have to ask myself why the fuck he would be getting involved. Anyways, but I'm gonna read a little section of the Deadline article here about this particular issue. Is the government detailed its POV by saying last week that because making a contract means entering a contract, a person does not enjoy the same right guaranteed by Section 1918 if race prevents her from, and I don't know why it just says her, but prevents her from entering a contract that a similarly situated white person would have entered, and the inverse is also true. So that was a little complicated, but I think the gist of what they're trying to say is basically like, we would have not entered this contract if it had been a white person, just the same as if it's a black person. And so I think that's what they're basically trying to claim is that we would have done this nonetheless. We just essentially what they're trying to say is we just don't want to carry your shit. Like it's not about you being black or white. It's just we don't want to carry your shit.
Yeah.
But I think the underlying issue with that is there are racial undertones to that actual sentiment. That the reason why you don't want to carry my shit isn't just because you're just not feeling it. It's just because it's black content. So you're like we don't really need this.
Yeah.
It's not for us. But
And if the Supreme Court, again, rules in favor of Comcast, right, it's basically saying that companies can legally deny contracts, again, based off of race, religion, gender, so on and so on. It just cannot be the primary reason. So right now, as you said, it's that like undertone, right? It's that like, behind closed doors. In front of the cameras, this is the reason why, because there's no return on the investment. We've already got similar content that is on our network that's, profitable. We don't need that content. When the door closes and the mics are turned off, it's, we've already got a Bob Johnson. We're already airing Tyler Perry movies, so we don't need more of this, right? This ruling, basically says like you can now say it in public. The door can be open. You can say, we're not going to get a return on an investment, and we don't want this black content on our network.
Yeah.
So it's a recipe for disaster. It's kind of like a step backwards for equality in film and television. So, I hope that the Comcast does not win this particular suit, because again, it just feels like a step backwards. However, the Supreme Court has a history of ruling on a more conservative side.
Yeah,
typically ruling in favor of these like large corporations or the government.
Well, also with the bend of the Supreme Court right now, in terms of what where their justice, where the individual justices sort of land. That's why it was so important that Kavanaugh got appointed, by Trump. As well as there's another justice that got appointed too. I forget. I think it was no, it wasn't Roberts. It was fuck, I can't remember who it was. But anyways, so he's already appointed 2 justices. Not to mention if Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if RGB. Look, I'm a big fan of hers, but also fuck, she's 8,000 years old. She should have fucking retired years ago when Obama was still in office, so that we don't have to fucking deal with this issue of, well, she kicks the bucket, then that means Trump's appointed 3 justices.
Yeah.
That's insane. They were destroying generations for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, none of this is good. I mean, Brett Kavanaugh clearly not in favor of racial equality, gender equality. I forget who the second justice is, but if RBG, if it's her time to go,
Sonia Sotomayor, you have liberal leaning justices, but their numbers obviously dwindled compared to the more recent appointments by the Trump administration. But yeah, so this isn't the last I want to talk about the story, because there's a lot about it I don't understand. I'll be completely honest, because you brought this to me not too long ago, and I did look into it a little bit. I read a couple articles, but even from those articles, I was like, this is a vastly complex
I have my
situation.
Law, so this is, I believe it was first filed in 2015. So this has been an ongoing battle. So yes, there's a lot that we both don't know, and I'm going to be paying very close attention to this because it will set a sort of standard or precedent for what comes next.
So this isn't the last you heard about the story. We'll definitely talk about it again, probably soon. Actually, like I said, I do want to look into this a little more than I have, and be able to report back what we find. All right, from that.